So hi, Jeffy.
Hey, Peter. Great to be here.
So Jeffy, when I get people on the podcast, the question I usually ask first is, if you could look back over what you've done in your consulting career, what's the primary way that you've used to generate new business?
I would describe our method here as productized consulting and IP licensing would be the two major mechanisms of where we've generated revenue. We've done some other research projects and we had a little software business for a while. But if I look at 80% of the revenue we've generated since 2006, it would come from some form of productized consulting, IP licensing.
Okay, fab. So just in case people don't understand what that means, I do a little bit because I know you really well. But when you say productized consulting, what do you mean by that specifically?
Yeah, let me give you an example of something I'm working on right now. So oftentimes when you're talking to someone, Peter, you know this from your consulting days, that um, the client will come to you with a problem and they might even have an approach that they're implementing. They're looking to hire you to execute some part of that plan. Most recent example, a client got a excellent upskilling proposal from one of the big four consulting firms. They probably paid a boatload for it. And conveniently at the end of the plan, there was this whole like execution part and they charge whatever, their high 6 figures, 7 figures for making a plan. But then when it came to the execution for developing the content, facilitating all like the workshops and the coaching and all that, it was go find some local labor for a couple $1,000 a day and they'll just take care of all the implementation for you. That's when I got the call. So they're like, okay, we got this great plan. It's super complex. We got all these different roles and seniority levels and 21 different capabilities and 500 people. We want to try to just get better at everything. And I look at this plan and I'm thinking, this isn't a very good plan. They paid a lot for it. The guy who brought in the plan can't make him look good because he just paid for this big plan and got approval from the board and the CEO for it. So I'm in a tough spot because they want to have me become responsible and accountable for delivering on this plan, but I didn't design the plan. I didn't think the plan was very good. And they were going to pay me like a tenth of what they probably paid to make. What do? I, of course, sign the deal. I'm like, okay, we'll help you with the content production. And they wanted to use some budget before the end of the year type of deal. We signed a deal, maybe 100K or so, right? To just develop some custom content for this whole training program they wanted to do. And my gut's telling me we can make the content, but I don't believe my style is not to go and lecture people and hope that they're going to then respond and change their behavior. I know inherently that doesn't work. I don't put my kids in schools like that. I want my kids learning through their own sort of methods of discovering insights for themselves. They work with coaches, right? I believe in coaching, not like teaching, like in terms of a one-sided lecture. So anyway, we get the deal done and we do a whole bunch of more discovery calls, probably 5, 7, 8, I don't even know. Lots of discovery work. And through this discovery process, I'm trying to understand the plan, understand the real problem, understand why they think this plan will work, what the underlying false beliefs are, what the root cause of the failure of this plan. So I go into this whole like inquisitive mode, right? And this is part, at least my process, my methodology to get to it. I will answer the question about productizing the consulting. So the whole time I'm thinking about the problem, I'm thinking I'm building a product here. I'm not thinking about delivering a one-off engagement. I'm thinking, okay, is this a pattern I'm recognizing that the rest of the world has that I can package up into offering that says, hey, listen, here's what everybody tries to do. Here's why that doesn't work. Here's the root cause issue. Here's a better way of doing that. And here's a step-by-step framework for solving this problem, which is now a productized offering. Okay? So as I'm selling it, learning how to do it, I'm packaging in behind myself. So if I need to repeat this process, I've got the sales decks, the white papers, consulting framework, the tool set, I've got everything I would need to replicate this deal. But I take that approach from like the discovery process all the way through the delivery process. So in the end, as soon as I've delivered or even sold this deal, I could then go back out. And I was even actually testing marketing channels and the messaging around this type of problem while I'm still selling the deal to see if other people have that problem too, to see if it becomes a scalable offering. So again, I don't think most consultants think this way. I've always been a product guy. Maybe I came from a subscription business where I built consulting tools and frameworks and all that. So I always thought build once, sell many times, and have leverage in your offering. So you got a lot of margin and you can scale. Then I started doing services. And so I've always just taken a product-driven approach to delivering services. I don't know if that helps to answer the question, Peter, but that's my take.
Yeah, it does. And I obviously, I know you really well. So you're a past client and privilege to call you a friend. And when you say frameworks, I know that demand metric many years ago, and so in your history, started out a different way than most consultants by creating those frameworks. The ethos was, enable organizations to do their own internal consulting.
You got it.
With frameworks and processes as good as the top tier consulting companies would bring in. And what I saw, what I understand, or what I think happened is that companies were coming to you saying, we love the framework, but would you be open to wrapping some consulting and implementation and training our team on top of that? So you came into the consulting side after the product side almost.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, the reason it happened was that I worked when I was going through university for an IT research company, and Gartner and Forrester, they're the well-known ones, corporate executive board back then. The company was called Infotech Research Group. And when I started there, they were selling, I think it was a fax. It was a fax-based newsletter that then went to email, and then eventually had a website where they would post the newsletters online. And we were selling subscriptions to this research around kind of executive summaries with some tools and templates for $79 a year. Okay. Fast forward, this business is doing, I think, $1 billion a year in revenue, eating up market share from Gartner. And I remember having a conversation with the founder and CEO. He's still a good friend of mine to this day. And his name is Joel. And Joel said, I was always like, why don't we do consulting here? Let's do some big ticket consulting. First of all, I'm going to teach you something about business. The business model is all that matters. He's like, when you're in consulting, you're basically trading time for money. There's no margin. You're dependent on these smart people. You got to keep them utilized and working. He's like, build once, sell many times, and ideally drop your cost of delivery on that sell many times to zero. Have your marginal cost to deliver a new client nothing. It's like software. Before software was a thing, right? Everyone talks about gross margins in software. Before software, there was information products, right? And so research, tools, content packaged up as subscriptions was, and still is, a very good business model. He said, don't fall into the trap of becoming a dinky little consulting firm. And I thought, okay, and it stuck in my head. Another thing he said is, you're not McKinsey material. I said, I'm going to go work at McKinsey. I'm going to go get my MBA. Yeah, I don't think so. He's like, you're a kid from the wrong side of the tracks. So you're smart, you're scrappy, you're not McKinsey material. I've had that chip on my shoulder going on 20 years now. And I think that's what's driven me to, first of all, build Demand Metric into the world's kind of largest, most trusted set of tools and playbooks and so on. And we've had 6,500 clients. Most of the Fortune 500 have bought them. All the major marketing associations, AMA, ANA, PMM, they've all distributed our content out to the world. And it wasn't even that clients were coming to us asking for consulting so much. It was getting pissed off that we sold literally thousands of these subscriptions and would call people at the end of the year, and one of two things would happen. Either they'd be still there and they would say, you know what, Jess, love the stuff, just wish we had more time to use it. That was one thing. And they maybe renew. And it was an illogical renewal. They were renewing just to continue having access. Maybe it was the in for a penny, in for a pound kind of fallacy of thinking. But the other option was they'd be fired and there'd be somebody new in there. And the new guy'd have to resell on what it was. And that was actually almost better in many cases because they were excited. They saw this stuff. They'd never seen it before. But it really dawned on me, it became this dirty little secret that you can have all the greatest tools and information in the world at your disposal. And I know you've coached consultants for a long time. Information is not enough. Yeah. But the consulting firms, the training companies, they don't want you to know. Because if they actually transform people and teach them how to critically think and problem solve, and nowadays with ChatGPT, use the AI to go out and solve their own problems, then the companies won't be dependent on bringing them back in for more training and more consulting of plans that they know they're not going to execute. So there's this whole consulting industrial complex thing going on where it's not in the consulting firm or the training firm's interest to actually drive results and get people better at their jobs. They want to create a dependency. And so that sort of always bothered me. I like real impact. As I'm getting older, I want to see real results and impact. So I took on a consulting project. One big company came along. They bought a $97 subscription. I did a couple months of coaching. We built a custom playbook. The guy was a head of strategy for a big chemicals company. And he said, I got a workshop coming up. Can you come in and help me do a workshop? I'd always wanted to do workshops and public speaking and stuff like that. I was a Toastmasters kind of Dale Carnegie kid growing up. And yeah, that'll be fun. And so I remember getting there and I fly in. This is like a $40 billion company. And I don't know anything about chemicals. Never touched the chemicals industry. And I've never really done like a workshop before, but I have all this content. And my whole plan was I wasn't going to go lecture. I was going to just keep people busy using the tools all day. Go do the work, right? Just coach them.
Yep.
So we get there and I'm staying in the hotel and I get up in the morning to walk in. And it's this like giant building. And they got the big sign up front. And I'm expecting the nerves to start kicking in at some point. Like I'm about to do this. This is real. My dream as a kid, right? And they literally had worked with McKinsey and had chosen to work with us on execution of the McKinsey plan. And it was a day when I was like, yeah, I'm not McKinsey material, but I'm something else. I'm demand metric material. And so I didn't get nervous. I walked through the doors. We do this workshop. Great workshop, continues on for a couple of years. We do 25 workshops all around the world, Japan and Germany and Thailand, everywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, we got the right approach. It's like these playbooks where the people are doing the work, they're building these plans. And it fails again. And I'm like, they paid me almost $1 million. Right? And I'm like, how is this possible? I'm a good sales guy. I'm getting people inspired. They're building these great plans. They're engaged. What the hell's wrong with the world? Like, why can't we just get these people to actually take action after the workshops?
Oh, Jeopardy, I can connect you with a question.
Yeah, shoot.
And as a friend, I feel like an ask a pointed question.
Go for it.
Do you feel, you might look back and kill me for this, but do you feel that you had any responsibility then if you think that project ultimately failed?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in extreme ownership. And I was being paid well. The scores on the workshops were really high. For all intents and purposes, it was a successful program. They were a happy client. They kept buying more. That's what they're used to. This is what the big companies are used to doing. They just dump money into training. They think that's the best there is. They don't think there is an alternative, right? So with this newer client, one of the guys left that company, went to a new company. And I actually brought him in as a speaker to one of these mastermind events I had. I started up this little incubator and consultants to help teach them how we're doing things. And I brought him in for an event and we were talking about the difference between coaching and consulting and bringing in experienced executives to actually coach teams through projects and real world application of theoretical knowledge. And we had this idea, we were going to go try to sell strategy was the idea. We're going to sell growth strategy at the business unit. We'll leave McKinsey and Bain and BCG to do the corporate strategy, but business units, they don't usually get the $1 million strategy plan. So we thought we could go in and attack the market. Then the guys in the program were a little bit nervous about trying to sell strategy to mid-size and large companies. We just pivoted. And in the end, the former client, when he was ready, he came back to me. He said, listen, upskilling was one of the themes we talked about. And I know you're really hyper-focused on upskilling and it extremely practically. Let's talk about this. And so this is where we got into this whole discovery process, and I'm still building this solution and productizing and packaging it as I go. But I'm expecting that
let me ask you if it's okay for that, Jesse, because I know you are particularly good at this element, but you call it telling the invisible or the first playbook, which is sell before you build. And it's generally the antithesis of how most consultants do it. It's, I don't have something and 100% nailed down. I can't go and tell it, or they don't even necessarily always think about telling as a phrase. So I know that you are brilliant at going out to a discovery and then telling the vision and backfilling on what the actual delivery needs to be. If I've explained that okay, I'm like,
I think it's easier to do what I would call consultative selling when you've got a network, when you've got contacts, you got people who know and trust you already. You're known for something. So my case is different than most. I've been doing this for 18 years, thousands of clients that know me for the playbooks and the content. So I've got a lot of inherent credibility to design new solutions. So if I'm Joe Blow on the street, executive, just got fired from my job, I want to become a consultant and hang my shingle, nobody knows you for anything. And so if you haven't already packaged up your knowledge, if you don't have a framework or a solution to a problem that you can uniquely solve, then you're going to have a really hard time probably, other than just saying really experienced. There's a lot of experienced people out there. So there's not a differentiation there. But my approach is don't sell. I give free consulting. So the whole time I'm doing this discovery, so let's just take this deal I'm working on right now. They came in, he was a speaker at an event. So I engaged him just like you're engaging me on a podcast, right? Came in to talk, we're catching up on things, talking philosophy about business. Months go by, check in. Hey, how's it going on the job? If you need anything, you let me know. I'll give you some tools, playbooks, whatever you want, free value, offering help. Then he comes to me, hey, we're working on upskilling. He's got this plan and he's got to try to execute it. And I'd say, listen, before we get too far into it, let's sign an NDA. Sign an NDA until you're pretty serious about buying something maybe, but I say, let's sign the NDA. That way we can share information. He sends me the plan he's working on to show me what he's trying to do. And I start analyzing, and he wants to spend some money and expects that I'm going to fit into this kind of system as like content action guy. So he's trying to buy content from me. I'm okay with that. I'll sell him content, but fundamentally don't believe that blasting content at people is going to solve his problem. So what he wants and what he needs, I feel, are different things. I feel compelled to change those false beliefs, maybe that are misconceptions in their mind, but I'm not being paid by them to do that. They don't want to be consulted on this. They just paid a ton of money for this plan. So what do? I offer free consulting. So I don't look at, some people call that consultative selling. Some people call that consulting. To me, it's just asking questions, being curious, trying to understand the problem, be helpful. And then I went on a personal development journey of my own to really understand the psychology behind behavior change and behavior change at scale in particular. What is necessary to get a large group, like 500 people, to change how they behave. And what it comes down to, Peter, is people don't differently until they think differently. And so we got to attack how people are thinking and their mindset, and alter how they're thinking about things before we even consider them to act differently. So,
Jesse, are you okay? Because what I want to do is go into kind of a mini segment, if you like.
Sure.
So one of the things I truly believe consultants need to be successful is a point of view, and it start with a point of view at least, and then try and move towards a unique point of view. Most people don't even have a point of view.
Sure.
Never mind work towards a unique one. And I know you have both a point of view and some strong, unique points of view. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to give you the opportunity to talk about your unique point of view. And for the listeners, it gives them an opportunity to see what a real strong point of view is.
Okay. Yeah, I've got opinions for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I know you do. But that might repel people, or that might attract people.
Let me put it this way, Peter. If your point of view doesn't offend a lot of people, it's not controversial. It's not going against the grain of what the mainstream believes, and therefore there's no expertise in it. So if people are agreeing with you, then you got a problem.
So let's start off at the top of that unique point of view, though, Jesse. So what do the big four consulting firms get wrong in your points of view?
I don't think that they get anything wrong. I think they're playing by the playbook that works for them, that's been working for them for a really long time, which is tell people what to do, just don't actually help them do it, so that they got to come back to you next year. If it doesn't work, to figure out a new plan, a new approach. They sell strategy. They don't guarantee execution. And so they're not fundamentally trying to change the behavior of the people. They're just trying to tell people what they probably already know about what problems they need to solve and a great way to solve them. But they're not actually stepping in there and becoming responsible for the transformation of the result. In many cases, they're getting paid for performance. There are some scenarios where they do, and they just do the work, but they're not incentivized to actually release dependency on them. They want recurring revenue from these big accounts, right? So they got a lot of overhead. They need to create dependency. So rather than teaching people how to fish, they do the fishing for them when they're doing paid for performance models, or they give them the strategy, but then tell them, go find some cheap labor to execute this for you, like I've been brought into several times.
Okay, perfect. So that's the case there, Jesse. Why do large companies still continue to invest in the bigger, older style consulting companies?
This is where the unique point of view comes out. They don't think there's a better alternative. They believe that they fall for the training illusion, the consulting trap, right? The consulting trap is if people just knew what to do, they would do it. That assumption, if people knew what to do, they would just do it. Let me put it this way. Peter, are you in the kind of shape physically that you want to be in ideally?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you
not.
know what you need to do to get into the best shape of your life?
I do.
Why don't you do it?
Well, excuses, behavioral trait, habit, kid, you're all combined to it.
I would hazard to say subconsciously, you don't actually want it. Or else if you did, your conscious behaviors would find time to make the food prep, do the exercise, integrate exercise with hanging out with your kids. You think there's no people in the world that have kids that are busy running companies that aren't in great shape? There is a solution to the problem, but you're only going to get the solution if you manifest it. And manifesting to me, here's a unique point of view, not mine, but someone's. Manifesting isn't about wishful thinking. It's about programming your subconscious actively, consciously, so that you go get what you want around you by filtering all the information that you receive and acting in congruence with your desires. Most people either think that they want something, but don't really deep down subconsciously want that thing, or they're acting completely in without congruence. So for example, we got clients that were trying to teach how to do consulting or make money. What's their big problem? It's that they don't know how to do the marketing. They don't know how to do the sales methodologies. They don't know how to package the point of view. We show them all that. We show them hundreds of hours of training on this. It doesn't work. You know why I think it doesn't work, Peter? I don't actually think they want a 7-figure consulting business deep down. They're afraid of succeeding. They're afraid of the client saying, yes, let's do this deal. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of failing and succeeding. Then they're stuck. They're not going to do any action because they don't want the result. In either scenario, they don't feel like they tried and failed, or they don't feel like they tried and succeeded. So where does that leave them? It leaves them not doing any work, executing. I think human beings outside of you and trying to become consultants in manufacturing and sales and all these different functions, they are in a similar place. And the consulting firms take advantage of it. They know that people aren't going to change. They know that people are inherently wanting to avoid change and stay comfortable with what's known, but that's also what's killing their business. So in order to unlock the business results, we need to first unlock the mindset of the people. We can't make them want to change or grow. We need to learn how to generate intrinsic motivation in the employees. So really, this is a cognitive, behavioral, psychology, therapy, science type of job. The consulting and the process and the frameworks, all that stuff, the technology, that's the easy part. It's the human beings part that all the consultants aren't qualified to really help on. In fact, that's not even true. They do all the research on this. They have people in their firms that talk about these things. But when you get the B team maybe working with your client, your project, they don't know that stuff. And so they just go right back in, 180-page deck. Here's what you should do. They don't think about what would need to be true in order to get all these people to actually go do that work. They have to want to do that work.
Fantastic. So what we've got then, the unique point of view building, things that the big consulting firms do badly, the reasons why companies still use them. So what does the main metric do that makes you stand out?
So I had to figure this out after, again, a couple of years of success, being paid $1 million. Client was happy, kept renewing my contracts, but weren't getting the impact that I wanted for them. And then I got hired again to repeat the same thing. And I refused. I was like, I'm not going to go do, even if I'm going to get paid $1 million to do this, I'm not going to go spend all my energy not getting results. I'm an overachiever. I like to see the result for the intrinsic value of the result. I went out and I started learning about self-determination theory. You know what self-determination theory is, Peter?
No, I would be lying if I claimed I did.
All right. When the client told me we need to generate intrinsic motivation in the people, my first question was, how do you do that? What's required for intrinsic motivation? Turns out scientists have been working on this for more than 100 years. 3 things is what adults need to be motivated. Autonomy. They got to choose. They got to feel free to make the choice. I can't tell my wife, go to the gym. She's got to want to go on her own. Second thing, they need to feel capable. They got to feel like they can do the work, that they can develop the skill. They've got the tools, resources, whatever, that they can actually master the skill. And they have the self-efficacy, right, to actually execute the thing. And the third thing is they got to feel like relatedness and connection, right? If it doesn't feel like the training, for example, is actually relevant to their job day to day, they're going to ignore it. They're not going to do anything with it. And if they don't feel like they're socially supported and connected with their peers around them in a safe kind of environment, they're also not going to take any action and be motivated. So to be motivated, we need autonomy, self-efficacy, feel competent, and it's got to be related to what we desire and what we want. So knowing that, We need to design our entire transformation program around those three principles. If anything that we're designing violates any of those three things, we have to scrap it. The first thing. The second thing is we need to, instead of indoctrinating people, time and a place for that. If you get hired at McDonald's, they want you to make a hamburger in 37 seconds. They're not looking for creativity and innovation and critical thinking from you. Just make the hamburger the way the process says. Okay. That's when you use doctrine. You tell people and you train them that way and you manage to a standard. When you're trying to transform a business and new process and innovate and build new capabilities with smart people, they need to go through a process that's called, I believe, guided discovery. I didn't make this up. It's been around since the 60s. I coined the phrase. And guided discovery comes out of like constructivist learning, where the learner needs to be arriving at insights and breakthroughs in their own mind. So let me give you an example, Peter. I might give you, and in fact, my daughter's actually doing a test to go to a new school right now where they literally teach with this system. So imagine you dropped out of high school and you didn't finish. I don't know if you know any kids that dropped out of school, but then they decided later on they were going to finish off and they did this correspondence to finish high school. I don't know if you guys have that over in Wales there?
So we do if you're out.
Oh, really? In Canada, there's lots of kids that drop out and then you can do this independent learning, basically. It's called correspondence.
I've never admitted it publicly before, but I wasn't a great little child.
Oh, no?
I was, kicked out of high school when I was 13.
Not surprising.
I was advised that my future would be better served elsewhere.
Okay.
But then I came into education later on, master's degree and everything. I made it like.
A lot of entrepreneurs, they're rebellious. And you know why? Is their autonomy is being taken away from them. They don't feel like what they're learning is related to what they care about in their life and what they need to know. And they don't feel a connection. Their peers also disagree. Being droned at by some boring teacher is not a good use of their time. So the smart kids really struggle with the traditional school system. When they become adults, it's the same thing in a corporate environment, right? They've just grown up this way and they're naturally resistant to being told what to do. Who wants to be told what to do? What to think? So if we know we need to shift how people think and behave in order to get better results, but we need to do it through intrinsic motivation, we have to be very clever about this. So we've designed this kind of whole model. We call it the holistic growth model, and it's growth of the individual, of the employee, so much the company. The business results take care of themselves when you invest in the people. So we look at mindset, which is, imagine if you got a pyramid. The foundation of the pyramid is mindset. We need to really train them on principles and give them tools and support on resilience and how to overcome and harness even adversities and obstacles and challenges and view difficult situations as great opportunities to grow and actually use them as fuel for energy to actually execute, which most of the world is not really high, what you call AQ, right? Grit is the other part, right? Where, so if AQ, your adversity quotient, it's like your IQ, but it's your ability to deal with challenges, been predictive of success, health, quality of life, sales, every indice of human endeavor. It actually turns out EQ, everyone talks about emotional intelligence. The part of EQ that matters is when the shit hits the fan and your emotions are maybe going a little crazy because you're in a really difficult situation. How you handle your emotions in times of adversity is what makes or breaks you in terms of life. When things are going well, you don't get emotional, right? You're good to go. It's a matter of how do you respond to adverse situations. That's like your defense, right? Your resilience, your ability to adapt. The other side of it is grit. And this is your passion and your perseverance towards achieving a difficult goal. So we partnered with the world's leading expert in both resilience and named Dr. Paul Stoltz. Dr. Paul's work, he invented the adversity quotient, the assessment, Harvard University's MBA program, executive education, MIT, all these great top flight business schools use AQ in their training of these MBAs, as well as many of the world's top companies. Amazon, for example, is using a lot of his tools in their executive levels. And so I found the best guy in the world at this mindset. He was doing it as more keynotes and presentations. So we incorporated the adversity and the resilience training into the mindset layer of our offering. The skill set component is the next one. So we've got mindset, skill set, tool set. The skill set is how do you teach people mastery? So we talked about self-efficacy being important, right? As part of that adult self-determination theory. And one of my coaches in my program, turns out he actually had a mentoring company where they mentored 50,000 students, and he had a training company where they were actually developing skill models and teaching technical people how to sell and do customer service. So he knows how to actually do skill training, and it's not training, it's the coaching. It's the reinforcement coaching on the job that makes the difference. And Demand Metric, we've been the tool set guys for 20 years. So we've always had the tools. We were missing the reinforcement coaching element, and we were missing the underlying mindset element. Unlocks the ability for people to think, grow, and challenges differently. So this is something that's never been brought to the market before. Each individual piece has been sold into companies, but for the first time ever, we're bringing all three of these components together.
Okay. Yeah, just a really good, strong point of view. As I was thinking of, which I'm a book, the things, as I read a book at the moment, audio, I think it's called Lost Connection.
Okay.
And the emphasis of it is to think of global depression, if you like, and the drug that people are on for depression. And it looks at things that people can be doing that aren't drug related to solve depression. And one of them is being part of community and sharing. We're community focused society, we've lost that. And the second one is clarity of the future. And that's what really struck to me is how they ran some experiments with small communities. I think they were in Canada, where they literally wrote them a check and said, look, everyone in this town is going to get $22,000 given to them every year. You don't have to worry about the basic. Depression went down, kids' education went up, visit like stress went down, as they just had a positive future, a vision of a positive future.
I agree with that 100%. To me, I came from a family of major bipolar, right? My grandfather was bipolar. I think my dad never diagnosed with it. I'm sure he's bipolar. My mother's bipolar. I may be bipolar. I'm at least hypomanic for sure. No doubt about that. But
You're for energy.
Well, I'm more manic than, but you don't see me when I'm not feeling the energy. You know, the way I see it is depression is when you are not living presently, you're focusing on your past, and anxiety is when you're focusing on an uncertain future. And so the reason why there's so much mental illness is people, they don't live in the present. They're ruminating about the past, maybe that they're reinterpreting often incorrectly. Their memories are actually false in most cases, what actually happened. And they're also stressing about a bunch of things that will probably never end up happening. Think about all the worries and stress you've had in your life. How many have actually come to fruition? Very few. And so the mental discipline to stay present in the moment and have the clarity to do what they need to do right in this day and live in day-tight compartments, as Dale Carnegie used to say, people just don't have the mental discipline to do that. And so with this training with grit and AQ, high AQ, people that deal with adversity and challenge as well, they do things a little bit differently than people that are stressed out and not proactive and react all the time. They're very emotional. And basically it comes down to four things, right? Dr. Paul Stoltz will go into this in a lot more detail if you read his books, Adversity Advantage or Grit, but they don't feel like they're in control of the situation. They don't think they can influence anything, right? And so they just say, screw it. I guess world all going to hell. I'm just going to happen. They don't step up and do what they can do to maybe somehow in some way influence the situation for the better. They also let a problem in one area of their life really dip into other parts of their life. So maybe like your business is going a little bit rough. So then you take it out on your kids or your spouse or whatever. They don't compartmentalize very well. And they expect challenges to last for a lot longer than they often do. They think it's, oh, someone cut me off in traffic, so my whole day is ruined now, right? They don't say, that was just this minute. Now it's a new minute, right? And so teaching people how to actually interpret the world. So attitude, people confuse attitude and mindset. Attitude is your emotional reaction to a situation or a circumstance, right? So you're in a good mood today. Peter's in a positive attitude. We're having fun. And your mindset, though, is what controls your attitude. So it's really the filter through which you see the world. People often will say attitude is the filter with which you see the world, but it's not. Your attitude changes all the time, depending on the circumstances. Your mindset is the basis for your attitude.
With that, Jesse, how do we pull that back into business development, specifically for consultants, which is part of the frame of the podcast? How do you bring that word into that application?
If consultants don't understand how people tick and how to stop the disengagement, how to stop the depression and anxiety, they have zero chance at affecting a result in business. That's the truth. If you're a consultant out there and you want to actually get results for your clients, learn psychology, learn cognitive behavioral therapy, and you might have a chance to actually change behaviors at some level of scale inside of a company. That would be my advice to you. That's what I had to do. I went out, I got educated, I read, I used chat, I talked to world leading experts, and now I understand the root cause problem of why transformations fail is because A, they don't reinforce things with coaching. They don't deal with the mindset and the mental discipline or lack thereof that most people have, which makes them fail out of the gates before they even start. If you don't address the root issue of how people interpret their world and challenges and situations, we can't have them constructively view a better path forward and have a vision. If you're a consultant, you know nothing about behavior and psychology, don't expect to be actually effective consultant. How's that for a unique point of view?
But in your client, but also for yourself.
Absolutely.
Well.
For yourself too. Change starts with you. If you're not a beacon of change and self-discipline and someone who can manifest whatever they want around them, what do you have to go out selling your service to a company saying that you can go manifest something for them?
Jesse, you've always got a strong opinion. So typically with business development, did you make any major mistakes along the way that you can say, look, here's what I learned from those, and could you pass those learnings on to other people?
Don't be lazy. I produce probably more content than any consultant in the world personally. And if you are not constantly learning and sharing what you're learning by sharing content of what you've learned with other people, and you think that people will just come and find you on their own, you're mistaken. I built 1,000 tools. I published all these things. So you've got to be constantly in the state of flow. Here's the real unlock, Peter. If you're a consultant, any professional for that matter, and you're not getting into a state of flow every single day, you're not going to succeed. Okay. Flow is the state where we're connected with the universe. We're getting clarity on what we need to do in the present moment to be effective and helpful. And we're creating something. And so the way that you do business development is you constantly trying to help people that you're in service by learning, sharing what works and what you've learned with the world. And that will naturally attract people to you. When you stop learning and sharing and trying to serve, your pipeline will drop. Doesn't matter how many cold calls you make, doesn't matter how many emails you send out. If you're not producing, if you're not creating, and you're not attracting energy to you based on what you're learning and being connected in universal consciousness, I don't think you're going to be successful, is my woo-woo opinion on this.
Brilliant. Anyway, about 50 years ago, I did a bit of work into flow.
Interesting.
I can never say it to...
I don't think anyone can say his name properly.
But
you know what, Stephen Connor? I can say his name a little bit easier. He's picked up a lot.
Okay. I got just a good time on this podcast. You've been amazing again. You've always got an opinion. And like I say, whether people literally agree with it or disagree with it, they can definitely take from that you've got strong opinion. And I know it does attract a lot of people. And the thing for me is knowing you is you're very good at spotting opportunities and energetically getting into there and creating the outcome for the person that you're engaging with and speaking with. If people want to follow up with you after the podcast, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just Jesse Hops, or on Instagram. That's where I share a bit more of my personal life and opinions on things around success and personal development and so on. On LinkedIn, more kind of businessy content you'd find out there. And I'm happy for anyone in your audience to offer them access to my resources. If they would like to use our tools and templates or learn about different consulting frameworks, I'm happy to share them with me. Just message me and say, Peter, and I'll know where you came from. And I'll know that I owe you a freebie in terms of giving you some material. I believe in abundance, Peter. There's more than enough out there for everyone. So what's mine is yours. And if people want some help, I'm happy to share. So just look me up on LinkedIn or Instagram and mention Peter and I'll hook you up.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend that people do. Your frameworks are fantastic. And in fact, I know them from like consulting stage into fact and enterprise tech. They're very much prevalent there. So Jesse, you've been an absolutely fantastic guest. And yeah, also Demand Metric as well, www.demandmetric.com. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate being here.
Star.
Yeah. Have a good one. Cheers.